What's up, YouTube? It's a Convicts Perspective with your boy Rojo.
It's your boy Flacco. On this video, we're going to be discussing the bonds once again, bonds 6 through 10. Any and all data pertaining to a new arrival must be reported to its proper channel, hence squad procedures, especially that which endangers the life of a fellow and or is contrary to our cause. Let's go ahead, bro.
What this basically means is like, man, it's all about awareness of who's in or outgoing with whatever section you're in and whatever facility you're in. In order to keep track of people who may have crossed us, amongst our own people, and any enemies with a potential, hazard sign that should be attached to them, we need to make sure everybody in the household is aware of it. So, we're a very, very nosy group of people. We play people into giving us information that, isn't really forthcoming information. Hey, what are you in here for? Hey, let me check your paperwork. Even people that aren't our people, man, we're trying to be all up in their business and get to know more about them to see if we can connect them to anything that may be contrary to us, So anybody that comes in, especially any kind of raza, we're on top of that, man. We're hitting up Paisas, we're hitting up others, Sereños. We're trying to gather as much intel about these people as we can to cross-reference it with, any information we might have on them or on any activities they've done elsewhere, if they've wronged us, if we need to make an example out of them, etc., or if there's somebody that we could possibly work with. We're not only looking for this information, in a negative way all the time. We might be like, hey, this dude, he's from New York, he's Salvadorian. He ran with the Latin Kings or the Neta, and we have a relationship with them, and a mild kind of working, friendship with those organizations in a lot of places. And, it might be somebody who might be beneficial to us. Maybe they're hitting, maybe we can offer them, whatever the case may be, offer them protection, not necessarily protection, but offer them, a circle to be a part of, but the main reason we do this is we're on top of every movement and every, comings and going R&R type of situation. It's for our safety of our people. There might be somebody who just, they were in Salinas Valley and now they're showing up to San Quentin and they're not really known. They're a youngster, but they hit a couple people there. They just got out of the shoe. And we need to be aware of that so we can keep an eye on that individual, remove the threat.
Yeah. See, this all goes back to what the original Familianos did back in the 70s, as far as when they tightened up their regiment type of structure, and what they realized, a lot of them were ex-military, ex-Vietnam vets. And what they learned was security starts upon intelligence. So we must gather as much information as we can. So when it comes to any new arrival, it doesn't matter if they're white, black, northern or southerner. We're trying to get as much intel. And that's why we have NA procedures when someone comes in, that they're as a new arrival, that's a northerner. We first get their basic 5x5, and then you go through a couple of NA screening processes, what facilities they were at, where they did time, who was with them, and then we filter the names around to see what type of information we gather back. We cross-reference BNLs to see if they're on any BNL list. And so we want to gather as much information upon us clearing the individual. Now, the same thing could be said of an opposition. When a Sureño or a white boy comes in, we want to gather as much intel as we can, like what type of tattoos do they have? Do they have a shamrock? Do they have an NLR? Do they have a G shield, which the Sureños used to have, the camaradas on the yards? We're looking for any and all intel information in order for us to safeguard ourselves. See, we've always operated with smaller numbers, and people don't understand. That's why we do the certain things like patrols and reporting information. It's because it's for our safety. So the more intelligence we have, the more safety we can protect our people. So that's what this bond is basically all in a nutshell. Bond number 7. At no time will a Norteno endanger the life of his fellow Norteno, nor shall any cowardice dealings with the canine or enemy be tolerated. To do so will be dealt with accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit differently worded than I remember. When I learned these, they were only for NR members, but the essence of it is still the same, man. So what they're looking for in this one is you can't, anything to put somebody in danger. It could be something as simple as just violating a household policy, like sleeping during the day. If you're sleeping during the day, man, say you're single celled, say they pop somebody's cell next door to you, you would be on top of that stuff. But, if you're sleeping, man, they pop that door and they pop yours, guess what? They got the upper hand right now. And that could be a really costly mistake, man. But, as far as just in general, making sure everybody's safe, in the household, man, you got to be on top of all your game. There's a reason that there's household policies, and a lot of things that would keep us out of danger as a group are in the household policies. Make sure you're up and about at all unlocks. Make sure, just like we were talking about in the previous bond, make sure you're keeping track of everything that's going on. You can read a yard, like I said before, like a book. You know what I mean? You just gotta be taught or have real good instincts on what to look for. You can, man, you step out on especially on these 3 and 4 yards, you can feel it immediately. Like there's no way to teach that. It's just something it's hard to explain, but it's in the air. The way to make sure that threat isn't as much is to be on top of your game. You can't be sitting there making, dumb decisions when it's not just you that's in jeopardy. It's you, it could be your celly, and it could be your whole car. If you're up to par on all that you do, and you're not, making any mistakes that, people are going to make mistakes, don't get me wrong, but don't make no life or death mistakes, or you're going to pay, and it's all going to come back to you, man. It's all about what they're stressing is just security and professionalism, man. Everything you taught, you need to implement it, because it's all been taught for a reason. It's all been being taught since the 60s, and it's been successful.
Yeah, this whole bond could go into a whole different variety of areas. It could be someone out there selling dope and getting into debt, or owing another race money and putting the whole car in danger. Or it also can work with bond number 12. Every time I've seen a bond 12 infraction, right, which we'll get into later, which is defend your household to the fullest. Sometimes if you violate that in number 12 and don't defend the household, usually you're endangering every end in that facility. So the different behaviors that occur on a main line could be anything. There's a variety of ways where you can endanger your fellow man. As far as the cowardice dealings with the canine or enemy, first of all, we don't, as Norteños, they're not supposed to work with administration on anything. Now, times have changed a little bit now. There's a lot more, a whole lot. There's a whole lot more communication going on between inmates and basically our top brass. And so there's a saying behind the wall, like as far as certain NF members, they're going to have permission to deal with the canines a little bit more than another Northerner. You know what I'm saying? As far as the cowardice dealings, you can talk about the, okay, we're not going to do this. We're not going to get off if you let us out there. You know what I'm saying? Well, why are you making a deal? You know what I'm saying? Or the canine said, you have to do this in order for you to be on this yard. And that could be also with the enemy. There were situations before where certain homeboys would get sent down south and they were told, hey, you have to put on your shirt. Hey, you have to cut your Mongolian. I was told that. I only lasted on the yard 6 hours. You know what I'm saying? I was told by some dropouts on that yard that, hey, you're going to have to cut your Mongolian. You know what I'm saying? They don't push or play politics here. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't going to play that. So that's a cowardice dealing there in this way. You're supposed to function the same way you are anywhere you go, whether you're on a stronghold, where we have a firm established facility, or if we're down south and we're trying to fight for that yard. We have to have that same mentality, and we will never work with the canines. That's the biggest thing that will get someone crossed up.
Man, speaking on that being down south and stuff, man, I heard that there was I heard this in the 90s, but there was groups where, if you pulled up to one of these yards down south, there'd be like 20, 30 homeboys out there. They'd be acting like homies. They'd have their shirts on. They'd look like they were programming. And as you got off the bus, man, they were feeding the opposition information about you, whether you might be a bro or a threat to what's going on there. And, they kind of made a deal with the enemy to go ahead and stay on them yards and be able to have a workout area and keep their shirts on as long as they stayed out of the way and provided information. And that's treachery, bro. That's the prime example of working with the enemy. You know what I mean? And I've heard that in many institutions from many people over many years, and like, as far as dealing with the canine, man, that's a real obvious one, man. There's people dropping, 602s all the time. Hey, this is, they're acting like it's for one thing, man, but they're really dropping information, dude. And it happens every day in every prison, in every yard.
They're screening each other's letters, I heard, in 602s and request forms and all that now. You know what I mean?
Can't screen everything. Somebody's trying to, say something, they're going to say it.
Another part of this bond that we didn't touch on too is if you're in a set facility and it's going to kick off, next thing you know, you decide to go to work or something like that, or you decide not to come out of your cell, or you go to your doctor's appointment, when there's a full 6180 kicking off. You know what I mean? That's another thing I've seen people, face charges.
You've seen that happen?
I've seen that happen. I've seen someone no good for that.
I've heard of it, man. I've never been in a place where it's about to go and somebody's just like, no, I'm not going.
All right, so we're going to go into bond number 8, man. No Norteno will lie or boast about his status, be he rank or file. He will take high regard for his physical and mental well-being and will always strive to better himself and become more aware and educated in all aspects relevant to the accomplishments of our set goals.
Yeah, basically, man, no matter what your position is in the household, whether you're basically just a regular Northern that's, representing Northern California, just no association ties whatsoever, you can't be untruthful to your brothers, about where you lie, because there's a chain of command for a reason, and if you're in there presenting yourself like you're one thing and you're not, you may be getting things, said to you or released to you that you're not supposed to, and that puts the household in danger also, because if you're getting this information that you haven't proved yourself worthy to get, or you haven't earned the position to get, man, that might be too much for you to handle at that point, like if you're a new booty or whatnot. So no matter who you are, whether you got the keys to the yard or whatever, man, you got to know your role, and you can't pretend like you're more or less than you're not, because it just leads for everybody to, there's going to be miscommunications and confusion. And maybe this guy thinks this guy's in charge because he's talking this way, and really, he might be leading you astray. His agenda just might not be, in sync with the households, man. There's a lot of people that will get in there and try to be more than they are, and that'll put you in a bad position if you follow the wrong people, So these people like that get dealt with, eventually, time will come where be like, hey, weren't you doing this over there or whatnot? But man, if you're following your household policies, man, and you're respecting the established COC, you're going to avoid a lot of problems, man, because you're going to see right through it.
And the second part of it, it talks about, will take high regards for your physical and mental well-being. So that's pretty easy. You're not going to be out there on the yard loaded on dope or taking psych meds. That's going to be a no-no. Back in the days in the 90s, a lot of NR members used to secretly, they were doing guy to guy. They were getting loaded on the yards, and that's a straight violation that would get you deemed no good off top. And as far as the physical well-being, that means just staying fit at all times. That's why we do machina while we're in the shoe, or we're working out consistently on a consistent basis. Most yards are going to have an established household policy to where you're at least working out 5 days a week, maybe 2 of those are machines just to keep your wind up. But on the mainline, it's a little bit different. You want to have wind, but you also don't want to be sucked up. You don't want to be doing burpees all week in the shoe. We want that wind. We're doing it all day. And now the last part of this bond, right? To strive to better himself and become aware and educated in all aspects relevant to the accomplishments of our set goals. This is whatever goals that we have as a people. First of all, is to secure, educate, and establish for the betterment of our people. That's the whole goal of the Norteno movement. The struggle is the oppositions and foes that try to suppress us from where we're trying to go. Which is basically have a safe facility to where we can enjoy the privileges and incentives at any facility that we land on. So we have to push ourselves on all aspects to stay educated, have that respect, and try to elevate our set standards. And a lot of times as an NR member, right? Rojo remembers this too. There's basically 7 fundamental phases of an NR soldado. You know what I'm saying? There's the NR history and bylaws, which consist of your bonds and formats, as well as all known history. There's NR literature, which talks about proper English, Spanish, Nahuatl, codes, and sign language. Then there's the third phase, which is weaponry and warfare tactics, which could be cold warfare, how to engage the enemy, how to send waves, how to remove all hostile environments. Because we're not going to always do removals. We're not going to just send like 30 guys to rush 30 guys. We're going to send maybe 4, send one wave with weapons, hit the main targets, and send another wave of 4 guys behind them to remove them. Therefore, our numbers stay high, their numbers go low. The fourth phase is basically mainline training, how to establish a facility, how to establish a COC, how to identify basically all known enemies, how to recruit other resources, and see, there's a lot of things going into establishing the mainline. Like resources means you want a homeboy that's working in laundry, you want a homeboy that's working in the kitchen, you want a homeboy that's working at all these different areas, a porter over here, or a plumber that has access to different things to where we can get weapons, or we can move kites, or we can move information from facility to facility, or we can even communicate with a whole. Number 5 is going to be legal law, which, if you've done any time, man, you're gonna have some issues where you're gonna have to deal with the law, filing habeas corpuses, filing appeals, filing 602s, tort claims, all this stuff we want to stay aware and abreast at all times. And the sixth one is character analysis and psychoanalysis and recruitment of soldados. And this means either recruiting manpower that could be beneficial and resourceful towards the cause and struggle, or potential NR members, which is a set procedure as far as when you recruit an NR member, a C has to sanction them, whoever is the RC at said facility, or unless you have a channel to the Bay, which back in my times, a lot of us did have channels to other Cs to where we could send our information. As far as if we wanted to pull someone, we could just send a kite, who the sponsors were, and just basically report that we're recruiting this person and wait for word to come back that it's been sanctioned. Usually you want at least 2 sponsors, but I've seen it done with just 1. Now the last part as far as fundamentals is going to be either street concepts or street functions. This is going to depend on each individual. So most people who parole, right, they decide not to function with a regiment because all you see is time and time a lot of brothers getting caught up. So you're going to be taught like things like, how to keep your yard clean, how to run your household and how to treat your family and stuff like that. How to get a job and how to portray yourself with your parole officer and get them off your back. Now, if you're functioning, you're going to start learning different activities as far as, how the street crews are going to pay out and what type of illicit activities are you going to be involved in, or learning mutual funds and how to invest your money. I mean, those are the things that I learned even when I was an NR member. Now, all these things are relevant to the goals of the cause behind the wall, which is to basically have a safe haven. So these are things that we're going to strive for on a daily basis when you're applying this bond.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody's been paying attention. They heard the first segment or not, but you see, as we do these, how they intertwine. They're not just some way out weird concept on one and something totally different on two. Each one of these were designed over time to complement one another. So if you're doing this, the result will be this, and then there's this, and so on and so forth. Like what he was just saying with the 7 steps. What do they call it? The 7 steps of equality. Isn't that what it was called at first?
No, it was I think it was 7 fundamentals or 7 phases of it.
See, I heard it was the 7 steps of equality or something like that back in the early 90s.
It's changed with the concepts. Like these bonds that we've been discussing for the listeners out there. Like,
yeah,
there's been about 20 different revisions with the same concept.
Right. Yeah. Like if I was to do mine, all mine would have NR in it instead of Norteno, and a lot of the wording would be different.
Yeah, they change it all the time. So
So when I was learning those, though, I mean, they're all still the same. Regardless of the generation, man, there might be minor tweaks to the wording or the order or whatnot, but all those things go hand in hand together too. And the ultimate goal is for the safety of every member of the household. You know what I mean? Once you go on the streets, things get weird. Like Flacco was saying, people get out there. Nowadays, a lot of people aren't trying to function. Back when I was there, man, every bro was trying to hit me up to work, and I would have to, select manpower and psychoanalyze and all that stuff. And man, I kept my numbers low because, I'm with the whole concept of securing the household. I want to be secure. I don't want problems. I don't want loose cannons out there they want to go to the bar on Friday night and know that they're probably being somewhat, monitored because, they paroled as a bro or, they function in a regiment before. There's more eyes on them, with SSU or whatnot. You never know who they're following. Like I've said in other interviews, I was followed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for months by the FBI and the SSU, and they weren't able to wrap me up in nothing. There's other guys that get out of prison, that want to come work in a regiment. Man, if them same people were following around, they wouldn't last an hour just because they're irrational. So you got to be able to judge people. And like my main point in saying this is all these things work together, and the bottom line is the safety of every member of the regiment.
Here we go. We're going to go into Bond 9. Should Norteno transfer from one facility to another, it is his sole duty to establish a branching union to all set procedures henceforth, and work hand in hand with other Nortenos at said facility and parallel with other pintas. Now, this is kind of simple. That branching union, you got to look at it from this standpoint. You have a mother tree, right? And at that time, it was Pelican Bay, right? So out that, you have all kinds of branches, which are all said facilities. So Pelican Bay used to have a different type of chain of command for the NR. They had a Nuestra Raza council. They had a Nuestra Raza administrators, and what they used to do is they used to filter different directives to these main lines. They changed it to Norteno afterwards, after the revisals. But so what this is saying is that branching union means is where all implementations and orders that are coming from the Bay, every single prison is staying abreast. in parallel with every other pinta, so we're all functioning under the same guidelines. It's quite simple. So when new mandates come out, like for a minute there was a Bond 13 mandate that came out that all NR members at the third time of not honoring a Bond 13, it was they would be stripped of their status after 3 times, cleanup and frontline status. Or there was also new implementation that all removals were supposed to be done by weaponry, no longer hands-ons. So these are implementations that come, and what ends up happening is we want everyone to be on the same page. So when you step up to a facility and say you're coming from, say, San Quentin, or you're coming from Delano or DVI or Corcoran Shoe or Pelican Bay Shoe, where you're around other C's that gets this information, and you step into a facility like Susanville or Solano, and this is back in our era where things are not up to par, because I experienced that when I stepped into a facility. They were telling me that I wasn't supposed to know the bonds yet. You know what I'm saying? That,
yeah, hold on, let me unlearn those real quick.
you know what I'm saying? They're telling you that those are, well, they said that the Northerners were not supposed to learn the bonds yet, that's privileged information. But see, that's where everything gets thrown off. You see, this is about having everyone parallel working on the same page. So here we have bond number 10. Every chapter and stronghold of Norteños will keep track of all enemies and enemy activities behind enemy lines at all times.
You know, we kind of discussed this a couple bonds ago, man. You gotta monitor and track everything. You know, it's for the betterment of the regiment. You know, everybody's safety's in check. You make a mistake, you might be the one to pay for it. You know, like you're not paying attention, they might be after you. You never know who the enemy has targeted they might think you're somebody that you're not. You know what I mean? So all it's saying is you got to be aware, you got to stay disciplined, you got to keep track of everything, and you got to forward it, man, because if you have any kind of information, man, even though it might not be relevant at that point in time, man, it could be relevant at another facility. And you got to keep track of these people, man, because they're not your friends.
So this is basically goes how the chain of command operates, and basically gathering intel. So each, whether it's a mainline or the whole, you're going to have different ways in how we keep track of all enemy activities. Like, for instance, if you're in Carson section or East Block, you're going to have a whole roster of every single individual. And the RAs every week are going to submit that roster with as much information about your neighbors. And what we used to have is we used to have the Northerners. It was mandated for each Northerner as part of the HHPs that they had to gather information 5 cells to their left and 5 cells to the right of all those in those areas, whether they were white, black, Asian. We want to know if they were a Crip, they were Kumi, they were NLR, whatever they might be. We want as much information, first name, last name, AKA. And this could be used later on down the line in case if they commit any crimes against the people. So we could filter that out for it to be dealt with. And so other situations could be on the main line. You know, the same thing, you want to have as much information, and we have daily DTRs, daily reports, as far as, okay, how many Sureños are in the building, how many white boys are in the building. You know, we do patrols every yard. We have observation posts. We have sentry duties where individuals step all night just to keep track of all activities. It's just about putting safeguards on your people. Every facility is going to be a little bit different because of the confinements, whether you're in the hole, the shoe, or on a main line, or how volatile the environment is. You know, if it's a straight war zone, you may have different security procedures that you may have to implement, you know, as far as, but it's all about gathering information, you know, and it goes back to say, okay, this guy may be potentially inmate, this guy may be a potential SSG, or he may be an NLR, whatever the information is, we're supposed to keep track, you know. So if we're monitoring these activities every day, we could see anything that could rise as a threat. Like I think I mentioned before, if you're on a yard and say every day you're doing your patrols and it's a regular Tuesday at 12:30 and the count comes back every day, okay, there's about 50 to 60 homeboys on the yard. There's maybe 20 to 30 Sureños, you know, they're all lax. Now all of a sudden, you know, the 50, 60 homeboys are out there, but next you know, you have 80 Sureños and they're all wearing their boots and they all have jackets on. You can count that as a threat. You get your QTR teams ready to go, quick to react teams. So this bond is about safeguarding our people and about continuing to keep track of all enemies on these lines.
All right, YouTube, that'll do it through those little bonds right there, man. And we'll be right back at you with the next ones. Please hit that like and subscribe.